Before the episode starts, I just wanted to let you all know that the Thirsty Mage has just launched a monthly newsletter to keep you up to date on all of the important releases, news, and other helpful information from the past month. Head over to thethirstymage.com or click on the link in the episode notes to read our latest issue. You can even register your email to get a nice smartphone-friendly edition delivered directly to your device each month. Now on with the show. Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that never gives up on an RPG. I'm your host, David Lloyd, and this episode... Oh, fuck it. I'll try that again. Start from the beginning. Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that never gives up on an RPG. I'm your host, David Lloyd, and this week on the podcast, we're going back to a couple of RPGs that we passed up on or maybe just didn't have time when it first came out. A lot of things can happen. Our tastes can change, our attitudes on certain things can evolve. So it's always good to go back to something that maybe we fell off on or never did try. So it's good, and in the same case, sometimes the developer changes or improves things. Games like Cyberpunk come to mind in that regard. But regardless of the reason, it's always fun to give games another go, and that's what we'll be talking about here. And here with me is someone who's willing to give an RPG a second chance, as long as it has saves anywhere. It's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, please just autosave constantly so I don't have to ever think about it again. It's funny to go from like so many games that do autosave now or do let you save everywhere and then go back to a game that has save points. Oh my gosh, we're so far past that now. But the games I have been playing lately definitely save anywhere. And I'm very, very thankful for something like that.
Yeah. It reminds me, I'm playing Final Fantasy X right now on my Steam Deck, and yeah, there's like the save points, and luckily in the game the save points are like so frequent that it might as well be save anywhere. It's like every time I turn a corner, there's like, oh, there's a save orb. Oh, there's a save orb. There's a save orb. But then luckily the Steam Deck has a nice, just like you just hit the power and it just pauses where you are,
like a sleep mode kind of thing, right? Yeah, that's good. Is it because with those orbs in FF10 you can do other things there besides save? Do you access like the sphere grid there? Is that a menu? I don't even remember if there's some other function built into them.
There's two functions built in. One is that if you go to a save orb, the summons are... the health is given back to your summons.
Got it. Okay.
Unit summons.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's helpful. And then the other thing is you can play. You access Blitzball through the save orbs.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. I knew there was, or I was pretty sure there was additional functionality, which is why they're so common. It's not just like because you're only saving at them; they had something else to do there, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's, but yeah, the sphere grid. I mean, I'm actually doing a Patreon only episode on Final Fantasy X, but it's been so long since I played it.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many things that I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was the case. Like, I was trying to figure out like, why don't the weapons have any stats? Like, what the hell? Like I've got like 10 swords for, I guess technically his name is Titus, even though I'm going to go with Titus, but I'm looking at like 10 swords and I'm like, I don't know which one's the best. Like, and apparently like I ended up Googling it because I got annoyed because like, is there a menu that I'm just not clicking on or something? But it was like, nope, they're all the same. It's just the abilities that the weapons have changed.
Right.
Like that's really the only difference between one or the other.
Which is funny because it's a little bit similar to FF7 Remake and Rebirth, right? Where the stats are a little bit different, but it's mostly about learning a new skill or a new ability, right?
Yeah.
Which is why you switch weapons frequently just to master them, and then you get to keep that ability, right? Like it's similar. There's a similar flavor there.
Yeah. Well, even like I had there's one weapon that I've been using because it does a counterattack. So I'm like, oh, this is good in this fight because now like every time he gets hit, he's going to counter and gets him down. But then I'm in this one boss battle where it's like, I need extra HP. So I ended up, and you can actually, there's some weapons that they'll have one ability and then they'll have like 3 slots and then you can customize the weapon. So I ended up like stacking HP boosts onto this one sword so that he would have enough to like withstand this one attack from a boss, and that ended up helping me get through a battle. So it's been interesting that way.
My last impression of Final Fantasy X is just remembering how bloody difficult the final boss is. Like it's so Sin is
Yeah.
so hard. I just it's one of those like really like top 10 like hardest bosses I think that I've ever faced, and I don't know that I ever actually beat it. Maybe when I first played the game as a kid, but coming back to it, I didn't. I just didn't have the patience for the grinding necessary to
Yeah.
get past it. But it's a really tough one.
Well, that's what I wonder. Yeah, I think I can't remember how old I was. Must have been 17 or 18, maybe when I beat it. Because
Hmm.
I remember beating it because I remember I remember the elation because yeah, it was ridiculously hard. But then I
Yeah,
remember like the. It's funny. I don't remember anything about the game, but I remember how the game ends, like the ending cutscene
yeah, me too.
with Yuna and Tidus. But yeah, we'll see if I have the patience to beat Sin in my 40s.
I mean, yeah, it's at the very least like you have more things you can do when you're grinding. You know, like oh, put on a podcast or watch a
Yeah.
TV show or something like that. Back then, like you were just grinding. You didn't have your phone
Yeah,
beside you. You
no.
didn't have other access to entertainment options when you were grinding. Like you're literally just doing this one thing over and over again. I suppose yeah, again, just when you're younger, you have more patience for something like that. But now it's like you're gonna multitask almost
Yeah.
certainly, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so I guess we each got well, you've got a couple games that you're going to talk about, and I've got one. And why don't you kick off with yours, Jordan? Because yours is the most recent of the games
Mhm.
that we passed by. And it's funny because before this game came out, you and I were both extremely excited for the game. Uh, this was like going to be a day one play, like
Yeah, yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
the hype was unreal for this game, and it just completely fell flat when it came out.
It was also going to be a game where like we bought a new console for, right? At least for me, like that was my idea. I was gonna pick up a new console for this. Yeah, so the game we're talking about here, without further ado, it's Starfield. And Starfield is a game that, yeah, we were super hyped about. You know, it's a Bethesda game. This was the one of the biggest games since the acquisition of Bethesda from Microsoft. And it felt like this was going to be like potentially like the Xbox saver, you know, or savior, I guess, right? It's this massive title, like it's building on like years, decades of Bethesda RPG legacy, right? With Fallout and Skyrim and stuff like
Elder
that.
Scrolls in space.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean that was the billing, right? And that it was going to be as big or comparable to something like No Man's Sky, with just so many places you can go to. And it does. I mean, there are a lot of places you can go. The problem is Starfield is just so in my mind mediocre. Like it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi, or it doesn't have that liveliness, that this feeling of like a lived in world that other games in their pantheon have had, right? Like I think Skyrim and Fallout 4, that the two that I've kind of played more recently, like I think they're head and shoulders above Starfield in terms of an experience, a Bethesda experience. It makes you feel like, oh hey, like this storyline is really interesting, or I want to go to this place and talk to this person and follow up on this narrative or this plot thread. Like in Starfield, the characters just feel so hollow. Like I never really formed a kind of bond with anybody that I met, you know. And I think there is a relationship mechanic. I didn't really see kind of how it was working. You got the standard like, oh, this person likes this or this person loves this when you choose like a dialogue tree option. But I've never followed any of those to fruition, and nor did I really care to. Like any of the people that I met, I was kind of just like, you know, like come along for the ride or don't. For the last half of my playthrough, I don't even think I used a partner character. I just like, you know, I don't want to choose one of you. Like you're just so like empty to me, so hollow, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just go do it myself. And then I ended up choosing perks that buffed my stats if I just went solo anyway. So I'm like, okay, this works out well that I don't take one of you with
Yeah.
me and hear like your banter or your whatever you're shouting at enemy NPCs or something like that. Just for those uninitiated, Starfield, the I guess the main story is about this group called Constellation, and you're collecting like these artifacts, trying to piece together like this some kind of object, and you don't know exactly what it is till near the end. But so I did the main story. I didn't do tons off the beaten path. I went to some different planets, and some of them were more interesting, some of them less so. There's a place called Neon that's very much cyberpunkish. It's cool. I like that space. But the main planet, again, I couldn't tell you much about it. I kind of just went to the story objective places and didn't explore too much. It didn't feel like a BioWare type world, like a Mass Effect type world, or a Dragon Age town or something like that, where like it's not it's a little bit smaller, but if there's much more interesting things to do there, like the people you talk to, the side quest, stuff like that. Again, the side quests here, what was interesting is walking around in Starfield, like you do, just hearing things in passing will give you a side quest, which is cool. Like you just be walking past two people having a conversation, and that'll ping a side quest on your HUD, and you can go and check that out if you want to. Just never felt really compelled to do anything like that. Like I was getting through the game in terms of like stats and progression and weaponry without that, but yeah, so I kind of just did the constellation missions and wrapped up, got the world credits and all that kind of stuff. I think I've played about 20 hours. I really do think I had my fill. I never felt super compelled to go back and do more of the side stuff or do a new game plus. The way the story wraps up, it sets up New Game Plus well, I guess. Without, I don't want to do any spoilers here. I do want people to try this if they haven't, especially the fact that it's on Game Pass makes that really easy to do so. A couple of not these aren't even nitpicks, these are major issues. Like I hate the way that weapons and ammunition work in the game. There's so many types of ammo, there's so many weapons, and I guess some of them use the same ammunition, but it's very hard to tell like which weapon is better, which ammunition goes with which weapon, what do I need more of, where do I get it. I was constantly running out of ammo, so that wasn't very fun. Maybe you're supposed to do more melee focused play, but I don't like that in games like this. These kind of third person action-ish RPGs, shooter-ish RPGs. But yeah, the ammo was just a huge headache for me, constantly having to worry about that, or scrounge around for it. I think the crafting isn't super fun either. Like whether that's doing research to increase perks or something like that, or just crafting new equipment for yourself. I never found that super compelling. The space combat is not bad when you're actually like engaging enemy ships. The problem is a lot of times you're forced into it, which I didn't think was very fun. I like going out and seeking it, or if it was like an option. Oh, I feel like doing some space battles right now. Okay, go and do it. But it was more like I would jump to a new system, and then I'd be forced to do the combat. And maybe the enemies I'm facing, their ships are a lot stronger than mine, or I'm under leveled for this fight. And so I lose like 10 times in a row before I'm quick enough to go to the menu and do a hyperspace jump to a new system. Like that's dumb. Like I don't know why it was like random encounters that like they could be super high above your level, and you have to do it. It's like, I don't know, just not just the way it was implemented. I don't think is super fun, even though like the mechanics of it, when you actually get into it and it's a comparable fight, I think are enjoyable. The way you can like target like individual parts of an enemy ship to disable them, then you can board their ship and I guess raid them or negotiate with them or whatever. Another thing that was just very, I don't know, unappealing, I guess, is that I never really came across any meaningful choices. And this is me coming off of playing. What's the other one from Obsidian that's similar to
Outer World.
Outer World? Like this is me. I'll play that about 6 months ago or so, and really kind of interesting. And a lot of them like choice between A, B, or a hidden C kind of option. Like I'm going to choose this faction or the opposing faction, or I'm going to try to do something in the middle. There was really nothing like that in this game, which I'm shocked by, because I think that's like a Bethesda kind of mainstay, is like choose good or bad or neutral, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then see where it goes, and then go back and like maybe choose a different one, right? Maybe make a save file just before you make that choice and go back and do the other side. There was nothing really like that here. Like, or if there were, they were very hidden, like such that when you're choosing the options, you don't really know which one is which, and so. I don't really have a lot of kind of touchstone moments of me being like, oh, this was a really cool choice. I'd love to see how the other side went, or how the other end of it would have played out. I can't think of many like that at all. Like there was one situation where I'm infiltrating like some kind of building, and we catch like a criminal or a thief at the end, and it's like you can kill them or let them go or send them to jail. I think I chose to send him to jail, and then there was no like real meaningful resolution of that or payoff at the end. I don't remember him saying very much. My partner character didn't say very much. The kind of quest giver, that their feedback wasn't super interesting either, and so I'm left just like thinking, not wanting to just myself forgetting about Starfield. Like I'm struggling to come up with ways to describe this game. It's such a 6.57 out of 10 to me. And for it to be such a big game and for me to not want to really explore it at all, I think speaks volume. Is that they didn't that maybe they focused on putting a lot of little things into the game or a lot of capital C content without kind of more meaningful interactions. And I know there are people that really like this game, and I think it ended up reviewing well, but just coming to it late, but with a fair amount of hype. Like I was very excited to play this game and want to set aside like meaningful time for it, where I don't have a lot of other things kind of on my plate. But then getting to it and just like, oh, I just want to see the end. I just want to like wrap up this storyline, wrap up the main story. And I have so many side quests and so many factions I can go and explore. And maybe that's where the good content is. Well, I'd hate to think that you have to really go off the beaten path to find the good stuff. But yeah, the main story is a drag. Didn't really care for it too much. I think some of the shooting combat's fun. Actually, I think in some ways it's a good shooter. I think like using your jetpack to like fly around and shoot enemies, I think that felt good. It is buggy, not like to the extent of like a PS3 original Skyrim release buggy. That was monumental. But yeah, there were still bugs and stuff that I encountered that were annoying. But yeah, Starfield. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really expected a lot more, and I think just overall I'd call it a disappointment.
I would, if you told me that Ubisoft had developed this game, I'd believe it,
Yeah,
because it feels like an Ubisoft game to me, where it's like a checkbox game, where it's like, okay, what do we need in this game? Well, we need lots of guns. Check. We need, I don't even know what, like, there is just so like we need interactions between people. We need a big hub world or whatever. Like it's
we
just,
need towers that you climb to activate map things.
yeah.
Like I know Final Fantasy Rebirth has that too, but
Yeah, it just has, yeah, like it doesn't feel like a tailored experience to me. Like
no,
I think I got as far as like making my way to the hub world, because like there is points where it's like, okay, I do the initial thing where it's like, oh, these guys are shooting at me, so I have to like shoot my way out of this like space station. And then it's like, the shooting the characters, like the combat was all right, I guess, but like the AI seemed kind of dumb.
yeah,
And then the guns, like you said, like I think I picked up like 12 guns, and there might have been like imperceivable differences between them. And then I like filled up my inventory with like, again, I had the same problems with like the ammo and the guns. It's like, well, what do I like? This gun is barely different from this gun. Like, what's the difference? And
yeah,
and
exactly.
oh, I just ran out of ammo with this gun, so I'll have to pick up this gun now, and I'll drop this gun. And it's just like, am I like, is this an inventory game, or is this a running around doing stuff game? And
Exactly. I spent so much time in my menus
yeah,
just unequipping and equipping different guns
yeah,
and like trying to figure out which ammo went with which one. I'm like, why am I spending hours of gameplay doing this? It's so boring.
yeah,
And like this is not fun. Like no one would think this is fun. Give me tons of ammo. Let me shoot everything. Like that part is fun.
yeah.
But not like figuring out, does like indecipherable name of bullets with 9 millimeter or 35 centimeter. I don't even know what they're called. Like they have stupid names like that. Like, and
Yeah.
sure, maybe if you know guns really well, you know what fits with what. But like as a layman, if someone just wants to play video games, light, medium, heavy ammo. Make it basic. All these guns use light ammo. Maybe they're all like they have this in their name, or they're all different. They're different colors or something. I don't know, but like simplify this. Come on.
Yeah. Well, it felt like they were like, oh, we've been playing Destiny, and that's a pretty good game, so maybe we should like pull all these like weapons things out of there. And it's like, well, no, like, are you a Bethesda game, or are you a looter shooter? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
this isn't what we signed up to play. Like, and then you get there, and then I think I got into, when I was in my ship, I think I got like boarded by another ship or something, because like I ended up going into into this other ship, and then I'm like walking through it, and then I kill everyone on the ship, and then there's like nothing on the ship, and I'm like, why did I even do this? Like,
Yeah, what was the point?
I just butchered a whole ship of people, and I don't know why. Like there seemed to be no reward from it. I just picked up ammo that I already used.
Yeah.
So it was like there was no point to this. And then I get to the hub world, and then like, oh, I go see this group, and then I think it took them like 5 minutes to walk to the place, and then I'm like, did I even see anything when I walked from point X to point Y? Like there was some grass and there was some like tall visuals in the background, like arches or something. And it's like, but I didn't. There was like nobody doing anything of meaning or purpose. There was no like neat people to walk through. I wasn't like attacked or there wasn't a guy with like funny dialogue. It just like it just seemed so canned. Everything just seemed like it was the other thing is you could argue that is like this the first game made by AI, because everything felt like it was just like parsed from like some generic.
Oh, if you told me all the characters that AI created or AI assisted or something, I would have believed you. Like I didn't. I mean, they never felt genuine. They just didn't feel real to me. Like there's so many characters you encounter in Fallout, Skyrim, Mass Effect, where I'm like, oh, like this person's really like they're really cool. They're really interesting. I want to know like how their story wraps up. I want to follow them. I'm gonna see their plot line through to completion. There was I can't think of one person here where I'm like, I care how your tale wraps up. I don't. I don't care about you. Like, there's a guy on your team. Like, he's got a cowboy hat. He seems to work for these Rangers. He's got a daughter. I'm like, I don't care about your story at all. Like, you haven't done anything to make me want to get to know you better.
The game is like the exact opposite of Skyrim, where it's like every turn was something interesting. Like you could just walk into a random cave and then not realize how much was going on inside the cave.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, man, I just spent an hour in that cave, but it was totally worth it because I got this wild weapon and I met this weird god, and then like I ended up in like this other dimension, and then I come out and I gain like 15 levels. Like and then there's there'd be characters at every turn. Like you'd walk into a new town, and there'd be like a new interesting thing going on in the town, or like, but yeah, these one like Starfield is just I guess the only way I can sum it up is like it didn't even feel like it was developed by Bethesda, because like Fallout and Skyrim, like I was getting none of those vibes when I
mean, let alone probably being the game in their history they spent the most time developing. I would say, right? Like we heard about this game so long ago. We know they've been working on it forever, and for this to be the final product, and after I think a number of delays, like I can't believe that this is what they shipped. Like it's very surprising. And again, I know there's a section of people that really like this game, and that's fine. Like no problem. But just like I'd say for most Bethesda fans, or certainly sort of the games that we really like to play, like it just doesn't check any of the boxes and ring any of the bells at all.
No. So I haven't gone back, and I have no compelling reason to, or like I just don't feel any of the pull towards it.
And I think they recently dropped a 60 FPS patch, at least on Xbox. And I'm like, okay.
That was the furthest thing from the problem.
I know. Exactly. Right. Like performance, like, no, it's fine. Like 30 frames per second in the game. Like this is fine. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go and just check it out. I don't care. I really don't. Like I'm much more excited to go back and play Dragon's Dogma 2 after I kind of got to like the post game part of that title. But Starfield, no. And the game, it's funny. This is really a podcast tale of two games for me, where I go to Starfield, I'm like, no reason to go back. And the game I'm going to talk about a little bit later, I'm so excited to be back playing it. And it just recapture the magic, like they just hit it out of the park with this new content. But more on that later, and less on Starfield. I can't think of anything they could say, oh, we're doing this for Starfield this year. I'm sure they're doing expansions. I'm sure they're doing like a big content drop at some point. I don't even care what it is. Like, just move on to Fallout. Everyone wants more Fallout because of the show.
Yeah,
just do Fallout 5 or whatever. I don't even that's what I want to see next. So
yeah, no, it's so fundamentally broken that I don't see how like they'd have to like almost recreate the game again. And yeah, like when you said like how much time they put into the game before, like I just don't see any way of coming out of it. But
they'd need like a Realm Reborn or like a cyberpunk style reboot type thing,
Yeah. And Xbox can barely make games on the way they're going. Like I don't see them devoting any more resources to Starfield after this. So.
I mean, this is their problem, right? Is that their big, like super hyped games have just really kind of fallen flat, and it's funny because I think they, for whatever reason, they seem to review well enough, anyways, like Starfield, Halo Infinite, but then I just think the longevity or the number of people that are excited to play these games, like it dwindles very quickly. I do want to play Halo Infinite at some point, and I imagine I'm probably going to enjoy that more than I enjoyed Starfield. It's a downer for me for sure.
Yeah. Well, the RPG that I'm circling back to is this one's a bit older than Starfield. It was actually originally a 3DS game, and this is Legend of Legacy. So the one I'm playing is actually the HD remaster that came out. I want to say just the HD remaster on Switch didn't come out that long ago, like a few months
No, a
ago, I
couple
think.
months, yeah.
Yeah, and
March looks like, yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So the reason I'm going back to it is because I've kind of been on a bit of a Furyu kick. It was funny because when they first came out a few years ago, like I reviewed Alliance Alive, which I enjoyed enough. But then Caligula Effect came out, and it was like such a I didn't click with it. And it's like a Persona-ish clone.
Mhm.
And then they did so they they kind of had, at least with me, the reputation I had for them was like, oh, they're kind of just like the big RPG Maker clone, like they're trying to copy like the Square Enix, like because like Legend Legacy and Alliance Alive are kind of Saga inspired, and then Caligula Effect was like Persona inspired, and then Monarch came out, and then it was like very Persona,
Very Persona, yeah.
very Persona in the story, but then to me that was kind of the breakout for them for in my eyes, because it's like, oh well, they made this neat turn-based strategy battle system that was unique from Persona. So it's like, okay, they might have kind of yoinked the kids in a high school kind of aesthetic, but
Of course, yeah.
I was so excited for the battle system, and then at the end of the day when the game was done, I was like, I had a really fun time. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll get, Furyu seems to be coming into its own, and now that I think it's like Rainatus, or I think it's
Reinatus, yeah, something
Rainatus,
like that, yeah.
that looks really
It
good.
looks good.
So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back and maybe give their old stuff a second shot. So that's why when Legend and Legacy was the remaster came out, I was like, oh, you know what, I want to give this another go, because I enjoyed Alliance Alive, and I'm kind of starting to dig the developers. So let's give this a go. And I'm about, I want to say 8 or 10 hours into the game now, and I'm enjoying myself. I would say that Legend of Legacy is a bit of a saga and mystery dungeon combined. Like
Mhm.
there's aspects of each. So the basics of the story is that this island emerged or appeared or whatever in this world, and the people of the world they the treasure hunters, I guess, have arrived at the island, and they kind of established this base town on the edge of the island, and there is basically like this hub of like, okay, adventurers are showing up, and they're exploring the island and seeing what treasures can be done and or found, and there's obviously monsters and that are kind of hindering the work. So you choose, there's a number of characters that you can choose from the beginning, and I chose this woman, Bianca, and which is kind of funny because her backstory is that she has amnesia, which usually drives me nuts. Because I'm like, oh
Your
man,
favorite RPG trope.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But they each have kind of they each have a unique setup. Like she's kind of a glass cannon type offensive character. So I'm like, this might not be my favorite backstory for a character, but the setup for the character, the way that they do combat is what I'm looking for. So I
Mhm.
guess I'll go with that. And then I don't remember. I don't think I chose the two characters that joined my party, but initially they put a frog character in who's kind of like this Shakespearean dialogue kind of character, which is kind of funny. But he's like the tank, so he has like this blocking feature that helps. And then they gave me a healer, another woman whose name escapes me, but she's kind of a magic user, so I'm using her for healing the party and that sort of thing. And So yeah, you have like this trio that goes out and they're like, okay, go explore, the wilds. And so there's this. I'm in a forest area, or the first area is a forest area, and basically like when you're walking through the area, it's kind of funny because like the area pops up as you're walking. Like trees will pop up and rocks will pop up, so you can't actually see where you're walking. You're just walking around and you're filling in a map that's up on
Mm-hmm.
the left of the screen. And basically, once you've walked the entire area, the map hits 100%, and then the map is like unlocked, and you can see. It doesn't really show you in areas of interest necessarily, but you can see from the. It's like a hand drawn map where you can see like, oh, okay, there's clearly like a big statue here, so that's probably something I should investigate. Or there's like a pond here, so that's something that I should look at. So like, you can kind of glean the areas that you should be seeing, you should be investigating, and so it's kind of clear once you've opened the map. And so in the forest area, there's like 8 different areas, and you're just kind of walking from one spot to the next. And the things that you're finding are like these magical items that give you access to the elements. So there's, the water and fire and earth and air elements are kind of the basis of magic. And so you find these stones that give you these access to the magic, and so you're unlocking things as you go. So that's kind of the mystery dungeon, is like you don't know really where you're going. You're kind of just walking around and fighting random encounter, or not random actually, because you do see them on the screen. And so you get into fights and you unlock things, and then I found a ruin and they gave me this magical shard, and then I leave and I'm on to the desert world now, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm currently unlocking those. Where the saga part comes in is that it's the leveling is semi-random. So you'll be in a fight, and all of a sudden like you'll unlock a new attack, and all of a sudden you'll have that to access. And the their standard attacks, everything's on an AP system. So like your character gradually raises their AP as they go, and so each move has a certain number of AP that will be used, and then if you use it all up, then you have to wait turns as it comes back, like one per turn. And so the combat system's pretty fun to that extent, where it's like, okay, do I use my frog to block, or do you go all with an out all attack? And there's a little bit of grinding to unlock items and or unlock those abilities, and to you do level up at the same time too, while you're learning these new abilities. So there's all sorts of things happening, and
Mm-hmm.
there's new characters that you can hire in town. I've hired one guy, but he's been on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I've stuck with my trio so far. And yeah, so in the desert area, there's like, you get to this one spot where it's like there's this condor that's kind of flying around, and you can see his shadow, and they tell you like, oh, you're not powerful enough for him yet, so you better avoid him.
Yeah.
And so you try to avoid him, and then he got me once and like kicked my butt. Luckily, there's save anywhere, and I don't know if it was in the original game or not, but in this one you can do like a quick save, so it just, wherever you are, just saves, and you got one slot for that.
Yeah, I think the 3DS one had the quick save. I seem to remember that being a feature, which is handy because I think this one you can just run into random encounters too, or boss fights that just swipe you, right? Like
Oh yeah, like
it's
that.
pretty
Yeah, because
some
when that
spikes there for sure.
condor, yeah, when that condor went over me and the battle started, I think I got one shot in him, and then he just one shot at the party. So I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not even close to fighting this guy. So luckily, it just sent me back to my last quick save, and that wasn't too bad. And but there is like, if you go back to the hub town, you can go back to the hub town whenever you want. And I mean, there's really no reason to per se, unless you're like wanting to buy supplies, or you can do like an official save with different slots that you can save at different points. But the thing I like about the game is that every battle is its own thing, because as soon as the battle's over, your party is fully healed. Like, so
Okay, right.
the HP just goes right back to full. So you can get into a fight, you can just keep going. Like there's no break in the action, I guess, which I really appreciate. Like, it's not like I gotta go run back to town and heal at the inn, or I have to have 15 potions in my inventory, or I'm not going to
Mhm.
make it to the end of the dungeon. Like, it's nice that way, where I'm just fighting and exploring. Like, there hasn't been much story really. Like there's some kind of like guy who's kind of anointed himself like, I don't know if a king is necessarily, but he's like built himself this castle above the town, and he's kind of like the overseer, I guess, of the adventurers that are showing up, and he basically just like, you know, go out. I need you to, you know, map this area and see what's out there. That's basically the extent of the story so far. So I'm sure at some point my character will begin to remember things as the amnesia wears off. But yeah, so far, you know, it's been, again, I it's good maybe that I'm going back now because I think I have a little bit more tolerance. Like I played Alliance Alive, so it's a little bit easier to tolerate that kind of like random leveling and random abilities coming up. And I'm probably just in a good place now to play this game, whereas maybe I wasn't before.
Yeah, it's always a little bit jarring, your first Saga experience, or if you haven't had one in a while and you're kind of getting back into that rhythm. But when you play a bunch of those games, maybe in a row or close together, I think it does feel pretty good. Like just kind of, you know, that in maybe sometimes infrequent pop up of stats, but when it just kind of happens mid battle or something like that, it's fun. Or getting into ability or something like that. I do enjoy that. Maybe as you get older, you have more of a tolerance for Saga mechanics. You know, like that could be something like that too. I do still, you know, want to go back and play Final Fantasy 2, which has a similar kind of progression system, and I will with the Pixel remaster version. But this one, yeah, I know I played the original one on 3DS. I don't know that there's enough changed for in the HD version to want to revisit that. If I were going to revisit one of these, I would probably try to play Alliance Alive again, because that's one I didn't make it all the way through. It has a little bit more story to it, I think, than Legend
Oh
of
yeah, for
Legacy.
sure. Yeah.
If in some ways it felt like this was like kind of not a warm up, but like they would take what worked in Legend of Legacy and it can add on to it for Alliance Alive, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I think the characters are much more fleshed out. Like there's more personality in the characters in Alliance Alive, and there's the story is much more structured, and the world is more, to me, the Alliance Alive, like the world is more interesting to explore because it's more of an overworld map
Yeah,
as
right.
opposed to this where you're kind of just like, I know it's not procedurally generated, but it kind of feels like there's like, it's just like oh well, there's just kind of this empty area and there's one thing in it
Yeah, exactly.
in Legend of Legacy. So it's if someone hasn't played either one, I would definitely say, you know, just play Alliance Alive like that.
Hmm.
I think you'd be better off with that.
Yeah, but if you've liked one or the other, I would probably say play the other one then, right?
Yeah.
Because you're getting a similar experience, similar flavor for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely with like, you know, my opinion on Furyu is changing by the day. Like I feel like I might have labeled them. You know, when it's funny because we had that episode we were talking just recently when we were talking about the indies that make games that are very inspired by or based on other games, and sometimes they can get a bad rap because they're like, oh, it's too much like this, you know, this other game where, so you can kind of, you know, put your nose up to it,
Hmm.
you know, get a little snobbish about it, like, well, this isn't Final Fantasy X. This is just trying to be this other game. Like,
But
screw
they're
this.
not the indies aren't the only ones doing that, right? You have kind of those mid-tier studios that are
Like Furyu,
also,
yeah,
yeah, Furia. They're also like trying to mimic a little bit what maybe what the taste is and what of their audience or what gamers are looking to play, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
we love Persona, we want more Persona type experiences. Maybe we like RPGs with kind of interesting progression mechanics. Okay, let's make our own version of that. And you know, again, they are like trying to add new things and experiment. And I feel like Furu has grown as a studio, you know, and yeah, if you fill in the gaps with the, you know, HD re-releases or remasters or whatever. But Renatus looks interesting. I think it's definitely a departure from some of their more older turn-based stuff. So I'll be very curious to see if that one turns out. It's definitely on my radar. I'm hoping to hear and see more probably next month at Summer Game Fest. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another. Or I've even heard about maybe some kind of PlayStation showcase before all the June stuff starts. So I don't know if that'll be in the cards as well. But I'm hoping to see more of that game.
yeah. It would make sense because I think it's got an October. I think it's October release date, or it's definitely this year.
Yeah, that sounds right. There's something else coming out in October. Not is
Oh, Metaphor.
Metaphor is October as well. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be tough to go against that too. But They are different games. One's a little bit more
Oh,
actiony, right? But,
Rainatus is it's a summer game,
oh, it is okay. Even
July
sooner.
25th.
Oh, beauty. Okay, that's good.
Oh,
That's good.
even better.
I'm glad.
Metaphor is
Yes,
October, but
please stay out of the way of Metaphor. That is not one you want to go
no,
against. I don't think, not this year. Yeah,
no.
yeah, that's good. But yeah, looking forward to that. Hopefully, we'll see more soon.
Yeah, and you got one more for us.
Yeah, yeah. So this game, man, and I've talked about it on the podcast a bunch, but the seasonal content just keeps kind of bringing me back, or at least making me think I want to go back. So this is Diablo 4. We've got season 4 just dropped last week. I want to say we're recording mid May, so it dropped in the earlier part of middle of May. The premise of season 4, the title of season 4 is Loot Reborn. And really, that's all you need to know, is that they've redone the way that loot drops work, that equipment works, progression works. You are, instead of like having to constantly go to a blacksmith and level up each individual piece of equipment to 4 or 5 levels. They've taken all that out. Now you can just you pick up scrolls that let you add certain I guess characteristics to weapons instead. And so you, as you're playing the game, loot's going to drop, and you're getting a lot more loot that is of higher quality. You're much more likely to pick up things you can actually use. Whether that's uniques, legendaries, rares, whatever. Even early on in the game, you can find like rares and legendaries, like which are yellow and orange equipment, as opposed to just like plain white, which you start the game with a fresh character, or magic, which is blue, which is kind of the next upgrade in level for equipment after that. You're not finding that basic stuff, that crap all the time. It's just like, why? I don't even want to pick this up. I find myself picking up everything now because like I'll either be able to use it, or it'll be maybe close to what I'm using right now equipment wise, but maybe the perks on it are a little bit different, or maybe it helps specifically with the build that I'm working with. But yeah, season 4, really, really digging it so far. Started a Necro. I also started a Barbarian as well. And I think that would speak to how interested I am in this season, that I've already started 2 characters. I haven't done that even at any point at the beginning of the game, where in the seasonal content or just before the season started, starting a new character. I would just do one per season, or one per go. But I started a new character yesterday, a Barbarian, because the leveling up is so fast now. Like in maybe 2 or 3 sessions, definitely around the 3 to 4 hour mark, I already got my Necro to level 49. Like it's just super fast in comparison to what it was before. Obviously, it's going to slow down as I get into the next world tiers, Nightmare, and then Hell difficulty. But yeah, just I'm really, really enjoying what I'm playing so far. And it's funny, like
Are you playing on Xbox?
I am playing on Xbox now, so I was going to say, like,
I,
everything carries over. Like your characters carry over, all your progression carries over because you're signing into your Blizzard account, I guess. So all the stuff is on your Battle.net account, or whatever the hell they call it now.
yeah.
So yeah, seamless, like really, really easy. So I can hop back and forth, I think, between PlayStation and Xbox. All my progression will be there, or PC, I guess, if you're playing there. So that was really nice too. It's on Game Pass. It came to Game Pass recently, I think, and then the new season stuff dropped on May 14th. So it's been awesome. Like I'm super into it again. I'm excited to kind of keep playing more and more. And you know what? There's something about it. Like it's the same game. You're doing the same things, but when you've got a new character and you are trying out new abilities and new builds and stuff like that, that is enough to keep it compelling. There's more monsters, like there's more monsters to kill. There's more loot dropping. The density is higher of everything. So the things that give you that dopamine hit, that rush, they're kind of scaled up to level 10 now. Like everything that you like about it is better now. So if there were things you liked and things you didn't, the things you liked are better. The things you didn't like are either gone or minimized. So they've kind of pushed things, or pushed the buttons, pushed the levers in the right ways to make the game even more compelling than it was. And it was probably my favorite game of the last 12 months for sure. And I've definitely put the most hours into this game, I'd say, and I want to keep playing it. I'm excited to be playing more of season 4 with my buddies. We're getting into it again. I've still never had a character hit 100, but I know that's going to happen this season, and I'm eager to see like what the kind of level 100 content looks like. I think they've added some like a pit, kind of like a maybe a series of floors where you're going down and fighting harder enemies to get loot like that. I've never played it in the Uber bosses. I've just fought the standard world bosses, which are still fun to do. But I am looking forward to that and really end game, post game kind of challenge that just haven't experienced yet, because the grind is just too much. Like, I skipped season 3 entirely. The new mechanics that they introduced there didn't seem super appealing to me. But season 4 feels like an overhaul. It feels like they kind of went back to the drawing board and said, like, okay, what are the kind of the key elements or factors that make a game like this exciting, a dungeon loot kind of game like this exciting? And that's I think they've accomplished that. I think the fan base seems to be really into season 4. The praise is pretty glowing that I've seen on Reddit and other places. And I would say for sure this is the best iteration of the game so far. And I enjoyed the dozens of hours I put in previously. Season 2 was a lot of fun with kind of its vampire theme. This one, I guess one of the themes of season 4 is that the Hell Tides, which are kind of like these areas of the map where it's as if, like, Satan himself has come and transformed it into like a volcanic wasteland. And there's just tons of enemies. There's this giant worm that looks like it's come out of Dune that just drops all these enemies onto the map. There's these sections where you fill up like these 3 pillars, and then just tons of enemies just spawn, and it's just so fun. Like, just the screen is like filled with enemies. As a necromancer, it's filled with corpses for me to explode or to manipulate. I've got all my skeletons with me, or my golem. Yeah, I'm surprised by how much it's really pulled me back in this new season content. And I'm not one of those, like, big into multiplayer, big into, like, not free to play, but like just kind of an evolving games as a service kind of game, which I guess in a way Diablo is. I'm not doing any of the microtransactions. You don't need to do that. You still get some of the battle pass perks for free anyways. But I'm so 100% in again. And I love the idea that this could be a game where just every few months I pick it up, get into it really hardcore again, and then just leave after kind of feeling I've gotten my fill. Like, I love that about this game. I'm excited that it's on Game Pass, that hopefully more people are able to check it out. But if you haven't played Diablo 4, this is the best time to get in. The season 4 content is really fun, and it's all the great things about Diablo that are just kind of all ratcheted up, I guess. I was thinking that this week when I was playing it, like, wow, like, this is probably the best. I mean, there may have been doubts, like, oh, Diablo 2 is really good, Diablo 3 is fun, Diablo 4, they're all good. I'm not sure which one's the best. I think Diablo 4 is clearly the best game in the series now. And it's this season 4 content that's really cemented that for me.
Yeah, I completely forgot it was in Game Pass. I might actually pick it up just for the sake of playing, because I think I played the demo. It was just the demo I played. I don't think I actually bought it anywhere.
Yeah, and I bought it full price, like the digital version on PS5, to get it like early. Like, I was so excited for this game, and I think it's justified, the amount of money I put in. But now that it's on Game Pass, like, it's a no brainer. Like, that if you haven't tried this game, or if you're a lapsed Diablo fan or something like that, like, there's no better time. Like, I know, like Phil Spencer on stage, he's going to come out and say, "There's no better time to play Diablo." There's literally no better time, because this season 4 is, it's the best so far, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the gamble with putting these games on Games Pass ends up working out for Xbox, because now they're talking about, like, the Call of Duty is going to be on Game Pass when it comes out this year.
I'm really excited to see that happening with Call of Duty, and truthfully, that's the only reason I would play it if it's on Game Pass. I'm not going to go and buy those games.
I'm not paying money.
And I used to like playing the campaign and getting into the multiplayer, but now that it's on Game Pass, I will definitely play Call of Duty. Their day and day, probably getting DLC and stuff like that. That'll be fun. What'll be interesting with Diablo 4? I believe there's a expansion slated for later this year, which we haven't seen too much of. And I think they're foregoing BlizzCon this year. I guess they don't have too many, like, big projects to work on. Diablo 4 has been such a big one for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Game Pass subscriber base kind of translates to more expansion sales, right? I think that's going to be a thing for them. They'll release the expansion. They'll have, like, an updated base game version that includes the expansion with it. This is the kind of the way that they do things. I think new character class, all that stuff. But again, they're using this seasonal content to ensure that like that base experience for people who jump in when the expansion comes out. Maybe some people wait for that situation. Like this is going to be like a constantly improving game. It sounds like. I think they're listening to player feedback. I think there's a lot of like that interaction between player base and developers, and that doesn't always work out. But I think here, listening to the feedback has obviously had a massive impact, and I'm really excited to see where this game goes in the next year or two, what the expansion content looks like. And the funny thing is, we were talking about story, like Starfield. The story didn't grab me. I was hoping for more from the plot threads and all that, and the side stories and stuff. The Diablo 4 Season 4 content, I couldn't tell you what the story is. I have no idea. I had some idea about the Season 2 content with the vampire stuff and how it kind of shaped your character. In Season 4, I think the story is really taking a back seat to just like, hey, you like collecting loot, you want to see things drop and get stronger and your character level up, like the big flash of lightning that comes from the sky when your character levels up. You want to hear that more? Here you go. It's really condensed the game into its basic essence, and man, what a good decision that was. But yeah, Season 4 Diablo 4, please get into it. If you've played the base game and you maybe fell off it or something, give it another try. If you've never tried it, it's on Game Pass. It's a really good chance to get in here. But I'm super into it. I'm gonna play tonight. I've been playing like I played like every night basically. I was waiting. The reason I stopped playing the Necromancer and started a Barbarian is I have never played a Barbarian before in this game, and I played all the other classes. But the other reason was my friends couldn't play yesterday. They were going to play tonight. I was like, I don't want to get so far ahead of my Necromancer that I'm
right.
much more over leveled. I'm basically ready to enter Nightmare World Tier 3 here. So I'm like, okay, I'll just start a new character. And within like an hour, I was level 25. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, it's so fun. I don't like the Barbarian. I'm not necessarily going to stick with that class. Necromancer I think is a lot more fun. But yeah, the fact that I'll just go and start a new character. I'm tempted to start a sorceress next week. Like, I just want to try all the characters in this Season 4, because seeing them level up so fast, you can kind of get to like the theory crafting or build crafting a little bit faster too. So yeah, Diablo 4, double thumbs up still. Season 3 maybe wasn't great. Season 2 I had fun. Season 4 is the best the game's ever been.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I know Xbox not having a great go or whatever, but to me, Game Pass has been a revelation in the sense of like I'm playing games that I wouldn't be paying money for. So Diablo is one of those. So I'll have to download it shortly here and get on that. But like as is the topic of the episode, it's circling back to RPGs. It's pretty much what we're doing all the time because our backlog's got to be miles along by now. So if Game Pass will help alleviate some of the financial stress of going back to those games, I'm always happy.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, there are other games that I want to circle back to that I've started and they're finished, like Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm definitely going to go back to because it sounds like the post game is really interesting. So we're not going to talk about it today, but at some point I will go back to what happens, I guess, after the credits kind of roll of that game. And it seems to be like this whole other world to explore, which sounds really interesting to me. But I wanted to get onto some other games. I knew Diablo 4 new content was coming too. So I had to kind of finish, part of Dragon's Dogma 2 so that I felt satisfied about it. But that is one we will be circling back to as well. And we've got a couple others on the list. I'm curious about the first two you added here, because I know we've talked about these games before. I don't know that we ever really started them at all. And maybe you did.
No, well, so it was funny because Casey and I have been looking at these retro handhelds that have been coming out. We haven't actually like decided to pick them up because technically you can get like the software on Android phones, and even now with the RetroArch going on iOS, like you can get them on Apple stuff now too. So I was actually looking at downloading the Delta app for my iPad because I have an iPad Pro. So I was thinking like, oh, that'd be pretty neat to play on like my big iPad, and especially like with the 4:3 aspect ratio games, it would look nice on the iPad. So I'm going to be looking at that. But that got me thinking about like there's these PS1 games that I didn't have a PS1 growing up, so I'm still going back to these old PS1 games I never played. And I know we had talked about Alundra, I think, in a
Yeah.
previous episode, and Casey had mentioned like Lunar 1 and 2 are supposed to be really good, and I've never played them, so I ended up. I will say that I have the ability to play Lunar 2 as of now, though I have not started it yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if these are games that maybe had re-releases or remakes. I think there was a lot of ability to play them on PSP or Vita or something like that. Maybe even DS versions. It's just a series I'm so like out of touch with, I guess, but interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's like there's a few of these PS1 games where I'm like, yeah, I want to give these a go, and yeah, those were what the ones that came to me.
Hmm. Yeah, Sega CD as well had versions of these games too. My goodness, like
Oh yeah, well,
yeah.
and even like Fantasy Star, I want to go back to at some point, and
We need to make a point of playing Fantasy Star 4. Like
yeah,
I'm always on the precipice of like, oh, when I'm kind of scrolling through my head of like, okay, RPGs I want to play but haven't got to, and I know they're a little bit longer, 20 to 30 hours ish or something like that. Fantasy Star 4, it's always in that rotation of like, oh, I want to start this now. Grandia 1 or 2 is on that list. Like, but those are games I want to play at some point. Like maybe next month or something. I really need you to push me to one of these games. Like, tell me
yeah,
which one we're gonna play, or Casey, or whatever, and like we'll just do it. Because like otherwise, I'm gonna be playing Diablo 4 Season 4 lasts until August. I could very
yeah,
well be playing this game every day until August or
yeah,
something like that. But I need another excuse to get into something else. So
yeah. Well, and I've been trying to get back into Persona 3 Reload
yeah.
too. So
Yeah, no, that for sure. Yeah, only played a couple of that, a couple hours of that one. Again, being on Game Pass is awesome for that.
yep.
I added one more RPG to the ones we got to go back to. At least I need to go back to, and that's Baldur's Gate 3. I think I just started Act 3 or something like that. I'd met this kind of big evil character in his castle, and he was basically leading me to the room where I need to go and talk to him, and that's where I kind of put it down. And it's a great game. Like I nothing about the game is what's stopping me. It's more like just me. I need to be in the mood for something like that. That's very turn-based and computer RPG kind of mechanics and stuff built into that.
Yeah.
I have to be in a mood for and it's not one that I'm thinking about right now. Like but I do want to see it through. And I was looking at. I always get on TikTok or Instagram. I get reels about like. I was getting builds for like Baldur's Gate 3, like, oh, how to do
Yeah.
this like super build at the beginning of the game. Like, oh, I should just restart and like have like this super build so I don't have to worry about combat. Because that's one thing. I guess I didn't build the characters very well, or I don't have a good sense of like how to do well in combat for that kind of game. So I kept finding combat to be more of a chore, and the more like the stuff I would like the talking and the side quests and stuff, would always be kind of gated off to me in parts because I didn't know how to avoid combat or to excel in combat. So I think that's one thing that kept me from finishing off the game. But I do want to circle back and maybe with some more tools in my belt for how to succeed combat wise. I might do that.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing too is like if you get your, I can't remember. It's been feels like
It's
50
been a
games ago
while.
now.
Yeah.
I remember getting my speech up to the point where like I was talking my way out of some battles.
That's what I need. Yeah.
Yeah, I even had one where I talked a guy into committing suicide,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Not that we
and he was a
condone
pretty
anything
big
like
boss.
that, but
Yeah,
anything to get through a boss battle. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the thing is like I was reading about how difficult this boss is going to be, and they're like, oh well, there's a small possibility that you can convince him that he has no equal, and so he might as well just die because no one like kill himself because no one else will be able to. And so I'm like, okay, I'll give that a shot. And I like my speech was high enough, and I got a lucky roll. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Nice.
sweet.
That's how I found myself doing. Like I would re-roll. I would just restart battles constantly and hope my rolls were better. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to get into a situation where I'm not relying on luck to win to win these encounters. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it definitely want to go back to. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Well, it's basically what our podcast is all about. Going back to RPGs. We keep up pretty well on the modern stuff that's coming out, but it's always fun to go back to some of the stuff that falls under the radar or we just don't have time for.
I feel like we're definitely this year is kind of a funny one where we had that like that storm, I suppose, of that tidal wave of RPGs early on, and it's slowed down a little bit. Where we're going to get maybe some remasters. We're going to find out about some more games in the next 30 days or so. I'm sure
Oh yeah,
they'll kind of
the
pad
summer
out the rest of the
season,
year.
reveal
Yeah,
season.
but it does feel like, and I'm curious if Avowed comes out this year because I do want to play that. That's definitely one that's on my radar. I like Obsidian. I'm almost tempted to say I like Obsidian better than the Bethesda now, but if Starfield is any indication of what modern Bethesda is going to do versus what Obsidian's done with the Outer Worlds, and I really hope Avowed skews more Outer Worlds. We'll see soon. But yeah, I'm anticipating we will have some months in the next little while here where we can maybe tackle some of these overlooked games or constantly on our backlog type games. Yeah, Phantasy Star would be a good series. I mean, again, there's those 4 games, and I've played the first one and enjoyed it, and I'd love to skip straight to 4. But I'd play any of them at this point. Like they're so easy to access with like Genesis collections and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's easy to find. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for an episode where we kind of return to some things that we maybe overlooked or maybe we fell off of for a little bit or something like that. These are games that came out a little while ago, and that they're either fresh or they're fresh to us. And we like Dave was saying, we have an ever growing list of these games that we want to get back to at some point, or maybe revisit after years away or months away or something like that. So yeah, so look forward to maybe episodes upcoming in the future about Dragon's Dogma 2, what the post game looks like, me finishing up Baldur's Gate 3, Lunar Games, Phantasy Star. It never ends here, but I do want to hear David's impressions of Diablo 4 at some point in 2024. That'll be one of my mid-year resolutions here to coax those out of him. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next time at the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.
Bye.